Hello, everyone, and welcome to Penny for a Tale. My name is Mitchell, and today we have a very special guest. This is actually the second time I've gotten to interview this wonderful person. It is Wade Dyer of Fragged Empire, a role playing game that came out what's about 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's 4 or 5 years ago, I believe, and this adventure began.
And what a wonderful adventure it has been. So why don't you kind of give us a lowdown of who you are, Wade?
Who I am. Yeah, so okay, so I'm a Aussie RPG creator. From the land down under, full of spiders and snakes and all that sort of stuff, as we are well known for. Yeah, and I created Fragged Empire, which is my sci-fi project, which was kind of just started out as me just wanting to make the RPG that I wanted to play. I got ridiculously carried away with it, and now I do it full time. And I've made a bunch of other settings, all based on the same fragged rule system. And yeah, currently running my fifth Kickstarter. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a quick in the
I have to admit, when I looked over at your profile on Kickstarter, I was surprised to see five. I feel like you put out a lot of books for in kind of an indie tabletop role playing entrepreneur.
That's a very polite way of saying guy who's currently sitting in his dressing gown in his home office.
That's better than me. Most of the time, I don't even wear pants to this. I just they only see the top half.
a, a long time ago, I used to work as a freelance graphic designer from home. I used to have a little comic stuck on my wall, which was a guy freelancing and saying, "Oh, yep, on the phone. Oh, yep, yep, yep. Come over. We'll have the meeting in 10 minutes." And then it's him sitting there, and the last panel is him running off, saying, "Oh no, I got to get pants on."
That's me every time. I try to act so official online, and it's like, yeah, I'm not really wearing pants, or I'm wearing sweats, which are kind of like the opposite of work.
Professional from the waist up.
Exactly. That's really all you need. That is all you need. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who is currently watching, we've been talking for the last 20 minutes prior to the show, just about the tabletop industry and kind of what's happening, as well as kind of these what Kickstarter has been doing for a lot of creative content, which has been amazing. I mean, Wade, do you think you would have been able to have accomplished what you have without kind of that platform?
Nah, nah, not even the vaguest hope in hell. Yeah. That whole like Kickstarter has really energized the creative field by removing those middlemen and connecting creators directly with consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like most of my yearly budget comes from Kickstarter. Like every time I run a Kickstarter, it's am I employed for the next year? You know? No, but it's great. I love being able to do all this stuff. I love being able to just do what I think is passionate and interesting, and just put it out there. And yeah,
And it's been amazing stuff. I mean, I was super excited to see the new Kickstarter come out. Uh, so Wade, why don't you tell us a little bit about what can fans expect from this new from these new books, and why newcomers should kind of hop in on this Kickstarter train?
yeah. So cool. So you think I'd be really practiced with my spiel, right? Like really like get the silver tongue
Yeah,
happening, make my persuasion skill roll.
yeah. Roll that
Uh,
check.
That's right. Look, okay. So I'm doing three new books. This is called Fragged Regions. And regions is because each of these three books are based on specific locations, and therefore my three most popular. Um, I'm just sorry. I'm just clicking to open up the Kickstarter so I can look at it.
Yeah, understandable.
They're for my three most popular settings. So there's one for Fragged Empire, which is my sci-fi setting, and it's set on the world of Mishpasha, which is this kind of frontier world, and it's kind of all the flora and fauna has been mutated into monsters, and there's lots of ruined cities that are all overgrown and stuff like that. So it's lots of different races are trying to colonize that planet. Then we've got the Arcane Bay, which is for my fantasy book, Frag Kingdom, and this one is based around sort of the typical starting location for this setting, because in this setting everyone sort of starts off in the last city on the world, basically. There's this big druidic war that sort of ruined all of civilization, and players can leave this city and go and found new cities and towns and stuff like that. So it's kind of doing that, but I'd also say that the initial Frag Kingdom book was sort of like an introduction to the setting. This one really fleshes it out a lot more. We go into great houses and factions and religious groups and barbarian tribes and a lot of that sort of different stuff. So that's really, fills it out a lot more. Then we got my Greyberg Market, which is for my Gothic horror Frag to Turnham setting. And so this focuses in on a particular massive market, because in a Turnham, you play in this endless city that goes on forever in every direction. And this market could take you a day to walk from one side to the other. And it explores, all the different fiends and the different groups that are there and all different mysteries and myths and legends and a lot of that sort of stuff. And also in this market, it's along a river, and so you get a lot of people from foreign lands coming here. So it's a real clash of cultures and a little slice of showing what's in distant, weird and exotic places and stuff like that. And each one of these books, of course, is filled with maps, lots and lots of maps, lots of lore. But I've also included a bunch of rules and extra, races and traits and weapons and stuff like that. That's all a little bit of extra putting there as well.
Awesome. And actually, so we have a greetings from Germany. Belvala really would like to thank you for the new expansion.
Thanks, man.
I know, I'm thankful too. So this is something people have been kind of excited about, some new content coming out in Fragged Empire. And I know when you were kind of sending out some feelers for playtesters, and I got to look at some of the stuff as well, and I was super excited about especially Fragged Empire, because that's kind of like my baby. The three new races. I know we have the Half-Bloods, the Oni, and the I'm probably gonna butcher this word, the Total
Tolatl.
Tolatl
is how I pronounce it. Yeah.
So what are these races like, and what do you think it brings to the table in terms of like Fragged Empire?
Yeah. Okay. So for Fragged Empire, you got these the three new races, and these are it's primarily the Oni and the Tolatl. Half-Bloods is just a way of doing sort of you're a child with parents of two different species. And so that's just so you could go like half Kaltoran and a half Legion or something like that. Okay. So there's not a lot of lore behind that one, but for the Tolatl and the Oni, these are actually two antagonistic races. There are rules there for players to go them, but from a setting perspective, they're actually usually causing people trouble. So the Tolatl were first seen in Frag Kingdom. They were a new race that were introduced, and in Frag Kingdom, they're very much an aristocratic race. They're small, sort of goblin-like with tails, and their tails can hold things and do stuff with it. But in this book, we actually get the glimpse of where they actually come from, because in Frag Kingdom, that's actually set in the Fragged Empire universe, but technologically devolved back to sort of like a fantasy sort of stage. But the Tolatl, we learn that they are actually, so we're still fleshing out the lore. but they were created to be Archon lab assistants. So the Archons were sort of like a progenitor race, and the Tolador would assist them. But the Archons were very much, they were very protective of their different research that they were doing. And so they actually built in hardwired kill switches into the Tolador. So if the Tolador were ever biologically hacked or tampered with, they would basically disintegrate. So that just sort of shows you Archons didn't really value them that highly.
Yeah.
But then they're very much connected to the Oni. So the Oni are a Nephilim race. They're these giant four-armed species, and they never stop growing. So some of them who were 100 years old back when the First War started, they are absolutely ginormous, okay? And the Oni have set up their own sort of Nephilim brood, and they have basically, they enslave other races, and they travel around, and they're very much a quantity over quality sort of race. So big guns, big ships, big thick armor, don't have a lot of high tech sort of stuff. And the Tolador were one of the races that they enslaved, but the Tolador have started to get away from them. But the Tolador have only ever known brutality. Like all the Tolador were all born basically into servitude under the Oni. But the Tolador, this brutality hasn't made them kinder or more empathetic. It's actually made them hard and has sort of broken them in a way. And so that's how they relate to other races, is how they have always been related to. Yeah, so that's kind of the quick little glimpse into what's happening here.
So I can definitely see some inspirations from Bloodborne concerning Fragged Eternum. Did you have anything else you kind of pulled from in what were kind of, I mean, if Bloodborne was truly the one of the ones that kind of inspired you the most, why did it?
Yeah, so I'm very upfront. Eternum is very much a Soulsborne inspired game. I love Dark Souls. Played the absolute far too much of that, and it's how do you put this? It's not a one for one. I'm not trying to replicate Soulsborne. Because I think there are certain things within a tabletop RPG that are required that aren't required in a computer game. So in a in RPG, you want consequences, you want narrative-driven story, you want social interaction, you want teamwork. A lot of this stuff that's not actually in the computer game. But something that I really liked drawing out of those games, which I thought was quite refreshing in this climate of super polished handheld games. Okay, we have a very accessible games. Everything's built that way, which makes sense. You know, even me, I'm trying to make my games accessible. I don't want to make things obtuse for the sake of obtuse. That's just bad game design. But in Eternum, you play as immortal characters. The GM is expected to actually kill your player characters regularly. TPKs is supposed to happen. But it's sort of, death is not failure in this. Death is more like a setback. It's like, well, what did you die for? Did you die protecting other people? Is that your, like, dying to protect mortals? Then that's worthwhile. Through your death, does that mean your opponents get to further their schemes and stuff like that? Yeah, so I hope that helps a little bit. I've also released a PDF, which so you can effectively play as Dark Souls and Bloodborne characters. If you really want to, it's like a bit of a rules hack. Yeah.
Which wasn't the only one. You had a mech rules hack, correct? That came out.
Yeah, I just love to make stuff, and so that was my previous Kickstarter. That was a Diesel Punk mecha game. I've only released that as a PDF. I think it's 44 pages or something like that. And yeah, giant robots and jetpacks, Tesla coils, and alien conspiracy theories, and yeah, that was a bit of fun, that one. So I'll probably keep doing that. I just like making these little PDF hacks.
That was it is an enjoyable game. I have to say that. Bale Vala, who says you know the person from Germany, has a question. The question is there a 2.0 of the core rules plan that unifies all the stuff that you have added and tweaked over the years? I laugh because it's something we were talking about right before we went live.
Oh, the mythical when's the second edition coming out
Yeah.
question. Look, I've been fairly open. So I have not started working on a second edition, but it is something I'm thinking about, and it's something I will be doing. Um, I think when I do a second edition, okay, maybe backtrack a little bit for. So I feel like my future books that I've released after my core rulebook have become increasingly better in terms of rules, world building, um, in a lot of different ways. I've been doing this for 4 more years, 4 or 5 more years since my core rulebook. And so when I do a core rulebook 2.0, you're probably going to look at something a lot more like Frag Kingdoms. I'm likely to add in a momentum system like that. I'm most likely going to do companions like that. Um, uh, just neatening and tightening it up a lot more. Yeah, I'll probably drop rate of fire. I think I can do a simpler system. So so a lot of the sort of tweaks, I definitely have no plans at all to completely overhaul. It's more like I'm going to do 2.0 will be like a revised edition of Fracked Empire.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Bill Vala also says, on a funny note, the Nephi in my group that I played up 2 years now is named Hrox. So the individual had quite a giggle reading the update.
Oh, really? It's a Harax.
Yeah.
Harax is like one of the main characters from my stories. So in Fragged Empire, like I start off with a story with my four archetypes of each
Yeah.
of my races, and Harax is the Nephilim emissary. So she's the prickly scientist who just says stuff really bluntly and creates lots of awkward situations, mostly by embarrassing or insulting Rachel, who's my main Keltoran
Oh,
character.
Rachel's my favorite. I have her mini that I still need to put together. I'm so ashamed. So we have a question from Total D4, which is, when Fragged first rolled out, there were some complex concepts as to how to get started for players and game masters alike. Wade was making a sort of YouTube guideline series of videos for beginners to understand some of the Frag systems. It seems like he's dropped doing these video projects. Was there a reason, and will he ever pick them back up again and make more?
Yeah, okay. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. So back when I first started, before I even released my first Kickstarter, I grabbed my phone and recorded myself doing rules explanations because, quite frankly, having someone verbally tell you and show you a rule really works for some people more than reading a rule book, even if it's just as an introductory, give you an idea of the gist of how the rule is supposed to flow. Then at a later date, through some stretch goals, we funded the creation of 2 animated rules tutorials, which kind of replaced some of my initial ones. One was for creating characters, and the other one was for like a core rolling mechanic. I would like to do more, but they're most likely going to come through stretch goals because I need to pay my friends who are good with video and animation to help me do those. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like the way that my Kickstarters have always worked is sort of let's fund the main things. I don't really like doing book upgrade stretch
Mhm.
goals anymore. I don't like saying art budget increased, editing budget increased because I just want to release my books as the best as possible. And quite frankly, I'm just going to do that. Okay. And so my stretch goals are basically extra fluffy content to help the community. And it might be an extra story or an extra PDF, or it might be some rules videos and things like that. So, yeah, I've chatted to my video friends and they're we would love to do more of those, but as always, it's all about the Benjamins.
Yeah, so make sure
Yeah.
I have the links for the Kickstarter. So if you're watching and you have not yet pledged or you want to pledge more, please do so we can see more videos. I know I really appreciated hearing your enthusiasm and I'm gonna have to say accent as well on the videos explaining the rule set. And as a GM, it was like, oh, this is amazing. Um,
See, if I was a really good salesman, I would like grow a bit of a beard. I'd put my Aussie accent on. I'd sort of create a bit of a persona. It's like, oh, g'day, mate. How's it going, copper? Really like dial up. But
Dial it all the way to 11.
that's right. I mean, I was already born in country Australia, so I can't help but have a little bit of an accent.
Yeah. I mean, it's an astounding thing as someone who kind of looks through different videos and is acquainted with a lot of role playing games. It's exciting to see a designer who is able to connect with the fans through the videos and through media and such in a very personable and entertaining way. I remember one of the first things I noticed, like, this guy is excited, and this is his game. And I know it's something hard to believe, but a lot of times when like on videos for Kickstarters or when they're doing YouTube, it's just kind of this monotone voice as they're trying to engage the audience.
which is a tricky thing, and I have a lot of sympathy. A lot of creative people can be quite eccentric, okay, and this eccentricity can manifest itself um, sometimes really positively, and sometimes it can actually lead to a bit of social difficulty. So I guess I'm very, very, very sympathetic. Also, I have friends who like live and breathe video, and they make me do 20 plus takes until I get it right. So, but I genuinely am very passionate about my hobby. I love talking to people. Like when I go to cons, conventions, and stuff like that, I love meeting people, even if they're not players of Fragged. Like just talking about RPGs and just gaming and creativity and their worlds and what they're doing. Like I love all that stuff. Yeah, it comes very chatting comes very naturally to me. So I think that helps me a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we have another question from Bel Vala, and I think this might be a stretch goal because I believe in the pledges I remember seeing it as not a possibility. But nonetheless, the question is: will you add a signed version for non-Australians?
So I've I've had people offer to have me sign it and then pay for postage to send all the way over to the US. And okay, this is gonna sound really weird, but I know like it. Anyway, I'll just say it.
Just
Okay, I'm
go ahead with it.
not gonna say this is the most well thought out reason, but I think I have a moral issue with people paying like 50 or $60 for a signed book from me. That being said, I will more than happily sign a bit of paper and send a bit of paper overseas so they can slip it into the front page of their book. Like that, no problems at all. But yeah,
So
that's right.
I'm
I'm,
back.
I'm sorry to all you wealthy people who want to pay me $60 for a sign for postage for a signed book.
Another one from the same person. A couple of years ago, you teased a board game slash tabletop. Is that still in development?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. Okay, so we've been working on this sort of skirmish board game for a while for a friend of mine for a number of years. We made it. I was very happy with the design. We've gotten most of the work done. Like it's that final bit of polish, which, as we know, the last 10% can often take just as long as the previous 90%.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's really sort of dampened that one, though, is we're struggling for a publisher because unlike RPGs, we really need to produce a very large number of copies of a board game. Like for an RPG, I could theoretically get away with printing just 500 copies of a book, and I'd go okay. You know, it wouldn't kill me. With a board game, I need thousands. Absolutely minimum. I need to be printing 4,000 copies of boxes of a board game, and to do that, I need a publisher who can then sell to distributors and sort of get it in stores. And even though wouldn't make much money from store sales of a board game, that would allow me to print more copies. But I haven't been able to find a publisher, and I think part of that is in Australia we don't really have a lot of publishers. Like you've pretty much got one or two, yeah, and neither of them are willing to take me on at this time. And I've looked overseas, but yeah. So sorry about that. I'm trying. It's still there, but it's been stalled by logistics.
Which happens. I know it could be a difficult process. So we have another question from Gideon Stern. After a successful original Kickstarter, why did you decide to expand by creating additional settings versus adding supplemental products to the Empire line?
Uh, okay, so think about me as a as like a game master who gets ridiculously carried away. Okay, exactly the same. So like if you've got a game master and there's some players and you love a world and you play lots of campaigns in your world, and it's your favorite one. But every now and again, you're like, you know what? I think I've played enough of this setting for a while. Let's mix it up. Let's put a bit of cyberpunk in there for our next campaign. I'm exactly the same. I've been playing sci-fi for a long time. I've been making sci-fi, living and breathing it. It's still my baby. It's my firstborn. It's gonna. It's always going to be there. But sometimes I just want to mix it up, and that's exactly the same. That's what's happened. I want to try fantasy. I want to try gothic horror. I want to try pirates, or and particularly the Diesel Punk Mecha one. Okay, so I know it's a PDF and it's this little project, and you know, but the way that one came about was I got sick, and because I got sick, my head was so fuzzy and I couldn't think straight, and so I stopped working on my current big projects and just randomly in a sick filled haze over 2 weeks, and I emerged at the end of this 2 weeks, barely remembering what's happened, with the outline of a brand new setting and rule structure adaptation. And that's actually how Diesel Punk Mecha started,
So what I'm hearing is we need to get you to catch another bug or something.
Well, if we want weird little projects like that one, I'm going to keep doing that. Like I think, like Frank C started out as a PDF project and then it turned into a printed book. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to release little PDF settings and stuff because they're just fun. They mix it up. They keep me creatively fresh and energized. And if those products end up being successful, then I will turn them into a full blown book. Yeah.
That is awesome. All right, so the questions are pouring in. So we'll just keep at them.
Yeah, go for it. So making your job easy.
I know, right? Like I'm just like I have all these questions. They don't need me.
All right.
So Bell Vala again says in a 2.0 version, do you plan to add more social RPG traits slash skills, especially to fragged, as in the core rules, if it's very tabletop heavy?
Yeah, so I have some thoughts to that. So I understand that question. Um, so what I'm likely to do, and I've been thinking about this vaguely in my mind, okay, and this is going to change, and I'm just sort of letting the idea cook in my head. I'm probably going to put a lot more effort into Frag 2.0's explanation of traits. So I'm probably going to start labeling traits in terms of this is a good trait for narrative people. Okay. And so it's that sort of focused. And then I'm going to say, this is a good trait for, we'll call them the combo person / power gamer. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll put another trait and say, oh, this is for the person who doesn't like, or who likes simpler rules. So I'm like a passive trait. And I'm going to think about that a lot more in terms of not just labeling them, but actually including traits for all those different types of players, those different types of ways of enjoying role playing games for every single category. So, for example, under the wealth skill, I'm going to put a narrative trait, a power gamer trait, a rules light trait, a synergistic teamwork type trait. And I'm going to think about that for every single category, and then label them accordingly. So I guess I feel like there's a lot more room to improvement to show off the power of the rule system.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, so
Awesome.
hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah.
I'm definitely thinking that way. I think there's a lot of room to improve.
So I have a question before we kind of hop back into the chat's question. I apologize, chat. So you were talking about power gamers, kind of the role play focused type of gamer. Wade, if you were at my table, what type of gamer or would you be?
Um, so I like to refer to myself as a reformed power gamer, but like all people who are recovering from an addiction, we do have bad tendencies to slip back every now and again. But at a table, I don't get to be a player a lot, but I'd probably find that I'd be a social leader character. I'm very decisive. I would make choices. I'd love chatting. I'd talk to every NPC. Um, I sometimes can have a bit of a strong personality. That's why I'm probably a GM. So I'll try and tone that down, but I also, yeah, yeah, that's the sort of gamer I'd be. Although I really wish I got to be a player more. I it's so rare for me these days.
Aw. Yeah, I understand that sentiment. All right, so moving down to Poet APB, who asked, why not kickstart the board game?
uh, so to do that, the way so I actually I'm a very thorough person, and so if I was to take it to Kickstarter, I would want to have all my ducks in a row already. I would want everything lined up from I know how this is gonna get written, how this is gonna get the art's going done. I want the rules finished. I've got publishers lined up. I've got warehouses lined up. Postage already figured out. The whole lot all calculated and costs broken down and already started development. And then I would like to take that as a completed plan to people. I don't I don't think I could do that
Hmm.
until I've got a publisher lined up. And a publisher's a tricky one because board games is a very different market to RPGs.
Yeah, definitely.
There's actually, even though board gamers will deny it, there is much more money in board games, both in terms of production and potential. Whereas, yeah, RPGs are a slightly lower risk, but still difficult. Yeah.
It's a whole nother beast.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of goes like tabletop RPGs at the bottom, then board games, and then computer games. And there's such a big gap between those tiers that you can barely compare one to the next.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty confident that most local stores are just supported by Magic the Gathering, and then board games, and then tabletops are just kind of
Oh,
there for extra
tabletop
snacks.
RPGs have a terrible reputation for being moochers of spaces. And
Yeah.
yeah, we know our hobby is getting subsidized by the Magic at the Gatherings and
Yeah.
the Settlers of Catan and
Yeah, that's why whenever you go to a game store, just like whisper a thank you to them so you can
that's right.
continue to have your stuff on.
Buy some dice and some minis. I remember at my old local game store before they ended up changing owners and stuff like that. I used to always try and buy a couple of WizKid minis, and yeah,
Yeah. They need the love.
That's right.
So I am probably gonna butcher this name, and I really apologize for it, but I'm gonna attempt it anyway. Barsalikadul. What is your least favorite, most ashamed of race from any, all, or each of the settings, either playable or NPC races?
My least, was it least favorite?
Yeah, least favorite or most ashamed of.
Oh, oh, okay. Uh, I, I, that's a difficult question, but one does come to mind. So there is a race hidden in the antagonist archive, I believe, called the Augments. It might be the antagonist. I'm pretty sure it's the antagonist. And the Augments get no lore. There is no lore about the Augments anywhere. There is an obscure bit of art that is not labeled, and yeah, it might be in there. I'm not sure. I cannot remember. See, this shows you how ashamed I am. I don't even know where they are. And these poor augments get no lore, one art that's not labeled, nothing said about them, and it's just, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Fleeting, fleeting thought that ended up in a book that may never get anything else written about them.
Yeah, they're not in the index either.
Okay, they're probably hidden in the proto. I'm not sure. Anyway,
If anyone
very bad.
can find that, do post it on the chat and let us know. I am very curious
That's right. We,
to,
we,
to
we, can, we can move along now before Wade gets too embarrassed.
no, I want to dig this up and display it. All right. So Belvala doesn't have a question, but does want to say Empire made me love tabletop again. So.
Oh, nice. Thanks, man.
All right. Total D4 question. If any more Frag Kickstarter campaigns come about for additional content to the sci-fi setting, might we ever get stretch goals for some spaceship miniatures of existing ships seen in some of the game arts?
Yeah. Okay. So, Fragged Empire ships. So there's two parts to this question. Okay. So two parts to the answer. The first part is I like the general aesthetic of a bunch of the ships, but I feel like there is room for design improvement. And so, in probably Fragged 2.0, when it comes out, I'm going to make sure I find an artist who specializes in vehicular art. Okay. So I haven't actually, I've worked with lots of character artists and environmental artists. And these people have been very capable of drawing vehicles, but I think I want to find someone who specializes in that, who can really put some beautiful detail into the vehicles and how they look and feel and thinking about their structure. Because at the moment, a lot of the art, they look nice, but as a 3D object, I don't think they would necessarily all look that aesthetically pleasing or be that iconic. Okay. Yeah. So I want to get the art improved, would be the first bit. And the second bit is I want to get a little bit better at my miniature production. So I've produced miniatures in the past, but unfortunately, I can't use the same systems or the same manufacturers. But I've been working on that, and I'm really close to figuring it out. That is not as big of a problem as what it has been in the past. I've started to find some companies. I've got some samples. I'm excited about them. I've even got some already characters 3D modeled up that people haven't seen yet. They're all ready for production. And I'll probably test out those companies on those miniatures. And if those characters go well, I'd love to get some spaceships made up. I think that'd be really cool. Just get one for each of the core races would be fantastic.
Ooh, that would be awesome. I would very much like that. All right. So Belvala also says you have always been very cool about input from your community, and I really appreciate that as a fan of the world and books. Which yeah, I've seen that too.
Thanks.
Very responsive.
It's actually I really enjoy getting feedback from the community because it also, even though the community is not always excellent at perfectly identifying a problem, people are really good at identifying when something doesn't quite feel right. Even if they can't articulate fully why this is, or what the solution is, it's really important, I think, for designers to be chatting to their community, to keep their finger on the pulse, because that gives you an idea about where the points of tension and where there's areas for improvement within your book.
And also for those curious, Carsal let us know what page. It's in the protagonist archives, page 170-ish. You're gonna find a little bit about the augments.
And that's where they will stay forever. Probably never be repeated. And yeah.
Let's see. So Kersal says, furthermore, on the ship topic, would you consider providing some sort of guide or example on ship creation? Narrative style, I mean, like some ship layouts for either important NPCs or generic ship designs.
Yeah, I think that's so I've discovered that I really like drawing maps. Thus these three latest books, and so in future books, I would love to actually start drawing some blueprint sort of maps of the insides of a bunch of different ships, just to sort of give an example. So even if people may not use them as maps for their game, they give a real sense of space and what my idea is about the size and the scale and the structure of the ships and things like that. So yeah, no, very much. I'd be very excited to do that. I enjoy drawing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, some people are asking for an augmentation supplement.
No, not gonna happen, people.
It's never happening.
No, sorry.
unless we get Wade sick, and he just does
What's gonna come out of that haze if that happens?
uh,
I have vague ideas in my mind about doing a superhero game. That's
ooh.
most likely going to happen because I've pretty much figured that one out in my head in terms of what I wanted to feel like. And I've also been crunching the idea of a cyberpunk game. I have the lore perfectly fine for a cyberpunk. I'd put it in Fragged Empire near the human era, back when like electronic tech was like crazy powerful. But I haven't figured out how to do hacking right. So as
if
soon as I figure that out, it'll
Yeah,
happen.
if you can figure that out, I think you will have the holy grail of the role playing industry. I know after looking at Shadowrun 6.0 as a Shadowrun fan in general, but also kind of sighing every time I have to go through the rule book,
Mm,
just because there's just so much there.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but I'm really excited about that, and I think everyone is excited too. So Omega Cake wants to know. Oh, actually, I guess you might have just answered that, but he wanted to know what's the next little project like Diesel Punk going to be.
Yeah, it'll most likely be the superhero one, I think. I just I really like the idea. It's in my head, and I feel like I like doing stuff that's really different to what I've already done.
Mhm.
And I feel like a superhero game is really fun. Yeah. So I'm thinking superheroes fighting over the top of like city blocks and stuff like that, and throwing cars at each other. And yeah, I've got ideas.
That sounds awesome. I'm sure everyone's looking forward to that. That sounds great. So I was talking to Steve Darlington about a couple months ago, and I don't know if he says he has heard about you and you guys have encountered each other. He is the creator of Relic, so I'm sure you guys saw each other at a recent con. Um, but it's interesting to see at least as myself being an American, seeing a lot of these more Australian game designers bringing their stuff overseas. Are there any role playing games currently being kind of played around in Australia that you would recommend?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. See, part of my issue is I don't get to actually have a look at what's happening in the wider culture that much. I'm so absorbed in what I'm doing with my own thing. The other thing is that a lot of indie RPGs end up being super narrative focused, like really like the rules are almost non-existent,
Oh yeah.
and my brain has a little switch that just goes, "Oh no, I'll move on." You know, every time I encounter one of those, which is unfortunate because a lot of those can be quite good. Um, oh man, there was something I was quite excited for, but I think there was the visuals who captured me. Um, but I cannot remember the name of it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, it was a very cool little one that's in development that I found
Ooh.
rather interesting, but
Well,
I'm really sorry, I
if
can't find the name.
no, it's okay. If you remember it, do let me know. I am very curious.
Yep.
Um, back off to the other questions. We actually have someone who wants to know, as this has been a source of debate, how do you pronounce every
Well,
race in your in your Fragged Empire game?
I was gonna cut you off before you ended that one because I'm like, I can anticipate this question. How do you pronounce? Okay, so the first one is we'll say the big bad guy is pronounced Exion,
Oh
even
man.
though you can pronounce it differently, but it's purposefully written in a way that you're not supposed to know how it's pronounced. So if you are mispronouncing it, that's perfectly fine. And I actually kind of imagine lots of people within the actual universe would pronounce it differently.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's actually designed to be a pain in the ass. But the other races are pretty straightforward. Okay, Corp slash Legati, Legion, they're the easy ones. Kaltoran, another easy one. Nephilim, another easy one. Then you've just got Remnant, Twyfar, Zhao, um, and Palantor. Toladal, Oni. Um, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah.
My writer, one of my story writers, came up with. So we had to design sort of a world building structure for names for
Mm-hmm.
different races. So, Legion, very Greco Roman sounding names. Corporation use very aristocratic English, tough sort of names. Kaltorans have Hebrew names, but Nephilim, because I purposefully, because they're like the bad, evil sort of race, I didn't want to make them line up with a human culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so my writer came up with the best explanation: smash keyboard, and then add vowels. That is now the official naming guide for Nephilim names.
Well, if anyone in chat would like to make an attempt at some Nephilim names, maybe we can try to sound them out as best as possible. I know for I called him Zion, and I
Yeah,
feel
yep, yep. Well,
oh
that's in terms of how you're actually technically pronounce it. The technical pronunciation, you're actually correct in terms of English and how the letters were structured. But yeah,
Exion. All right, cool, cool, cool. Carcel says, or question, have you thought about adding human tech into Fragged Empire, like the hacked mechs from a while back has human Gizmo as a rename? Have you thought about adding it akin to Archon slash Exion tech?
yeah. So probably the way that I'll probably do it in the future is my thought. Oh, so okay, so there's a couple of things. One is human tech is basically like mythological in terms of power, and so if you put it in the rule book as this is an object, it kind of can sometimes make people think that it's readily available,
Mm-hmm.
or if I just have enough money and I pass a roll by enough, I could get it. Whereas I don't actually want that for human technology. I would actually like it to be something the GM should create. It should be sort of unique and weird and odd. Like it could be dimensional travel, teleportation, or just super weird. weird things. So I'm adverse to ever adding in stat blocks for just human technology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's the answer. So
Bell Vala asks, is the Sol system still around in the Empire world?
uh, the soul system
Yeah,
in the Empire
SOL.
world. Oh, the soul. Oh, ow. Human Earth. Okay. Yeah, the soul system. Okay. Um, so uh, theoretically, yes, but it's kind of a bit like my presumption has always been it's a little bit like the Garden of Eden. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's this mythological place where humanity was born. Okay, and people haven't even seen humans. Okay, before. And so I would like to think that it exists, um, but I'm unlikely to ever fully write about it unless I did my cyberpunk setting.
Mm.
Um, but who knows what state it's in, considering all the nonsense that humans got up to. Like, it could either be an epicenter of this super advanced technology, it could be, or maybe humans wrecked it. Maybe there's nothing there. Um, don't know. Yeah.
The mystery persists.
And if someone even found it, how would they even know that it is the soul system necessarily? It depends on so much. Yeah. I
It's,
like to think it exists. Yeah.
it would definitely be something interesting to explore during a campaign. So, in the Kickstarter, you talk about new minion rules. So, why do you think, or why have you decided to kind of replace them, and what does the new rule set bring to the table that the previous ones you feel might not have done as good of a job as you'd like?
Okay. Yeah. So my original drone and companion rules had a bit of they have a scaling issue. So with different player options, you want them to be useful for low level characters all the way through to high level characters. So you want them to sort of scale nicely. And this is very easy to do with a gun because the gun shoots and it just shoots better.
Mm-hmm.
But I had problems a little bit with drones in that they start off, I feel like, okay, but they're a little bit hard to get into. And then at the late game, drones can have the risk of becoming overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically just created a alternative system. The previous system is fine, but this alternative system is a little bit simpler. Drones and companions come with a built-in weapon. You don't need to equip them, and you can only have one per player. So this is much like how I've done companions in Frag Kingdom, and I just feel like it just scales a lot better.
Interesting. So, you're kind of in a unique position as a game developer, making Fragged Empire, because as you said before, a lot of the what's coming out of the indie market right now is very narrative focus. While Fragged Empire, even though there's a theater of mind play, there's also that miniature play, and regardless whichever route you take, there's still a lot of let's say meat on the bones of that system.
Yeah.
Um, why was this important to you to kind of have this aspect of play?
Okay, so I think there's probably a couple of bits of that. One is it's just the way I am, and I think I've made a game that has basically reflected me. Okay, and there's a part of me that loves. I find beauty in maths. I find beauty in game design. Um, but also, I'm a firm believer in role playing games are really, really good at drawing lots of different people together. Okay, so you can have the really narrative theater student mixed in with the power gamer who likes to play COD, and they can sit at a table together and they both can contribute. So I'm a fan of, there's this whole role playing versus role playing,
Mm-hmm.
ROLE, ROLL. I like to actually think that I'm aiming to make Fragged as a game that is suitable for both of those people. Okay. Now I know basically because there's so much narrative stuff out there that's like exceptionally good. Okay, so people who are really into that, they're kind of spoiled for choice. But people who are a little bit more into the game side of stuff, they don't actually have as much of a choice. And I think that's actually helped for Frag to carve out a bit of a niche, and that is a medium crunch game. I'd say just as complicated as D&D. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
handle D&D, handle Frag, but it's a medium crunch game that takes its lore very seriously, you know. And I think there's a bunch of crunchy games out there who don't actually take their lore as seriously or put as much into it or as much passion or emotion or empathy, just stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
enough. They don't put enough of the human condition within their creation, and so I think that's helped Frag stand out. Um, but the only way you ever learn that is to play it. So it's tricky. You know, I can say I've got it, and other people they're all saying they've got it, but you're not going to actually get it until you play it and figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're definitely right. If you look at the history of Kickstarters and what is being produced by like everything in the tabletop role playing genre, um, you Fragged Empire stands out as one of the only ones that has a system that is has some crunch to it. And a lot of stuff that's coming out right now is either based on the Apocalypse engine or other very narrative focused gameplay. So I mean, for me, it's been kind of a breath of fresh air. Because as you know, like you, I also enjoy the crunchier systems like Pathfinder, Shadowrun, D&D, and Fragged Empire.
I will accept a couple of those comparisons. I will take insult at a couple of those other comparisons.
Yeah, I definitely Fragged Empire is no way as complex as some of those.
let the
For
let the system and then the edition wars begin. You
Yeah,
know?
let's do this. Get my hammer.
I grew up playing the hero system, which is
Oh.
this points by crunchy load of nonsense. Okay, that's what I grew up in. So everything in comparison to that is like, oh wow, this is so well planned out and so intuitive. You know,
Someone
so I feel
try
like
someone
I feel
tried to
like a
get
bit
me into
tough.
that.
Oh, don't save
Yeah,
yourself.
I was trying to
Yeah.
create a character and I was doing like multiplication and division and I was like, you know what? I don't. I think I'm done.
I grew up creating Excel spreadsheets with my friends, and we were doing multiplication, divisions, and little percentages, all these massive formulas to figure out how to shoot a lightning bolt. You
Oh
know?
man.
Ah,
All right, so going back, so Karsal has a question, or Karsa. There we go, Karsa. Thank you for the clarification, Karsa. How much of the game's design slash development has been solely yourself? Have slash do you have a team or people, or are you just a badass?
I have a team and I'm a badass. Can I say that?
Yeah, but
So yeah, okay. So no, this is very good question. I think when I started our frag, I did a lot more of it, but it is most definitely a team effort. And I'm actually increasingly seeing myself as a production manager, art director, and I actually think that's okay. I know it's like it's sacrificing part of my ego, and there's a part of all creatives who just we want to create these beautiful masterpieces that are all our own, you know, um, and we can derive immense satisfaction from that. We also don't like to play with others often, but um, but me being able to actually have a swallow a little bit of humility, sacrifice a bit of my ego, and let other people in has been immensely good for Fract. Like really, really, really good. But if people are curious, I still do buttload. So all the rule design is me. I draw all the graphics and the maps; they're all me. And then I write briefs for my artists and my writers. I develop the structure of the lore, and but then I work with other people, and sometimes writers come up with a cool idea, and sometimes they don't do what I want them to do, and you massage it, you cook it, and eventually it comes out uh, in its final form.
And what a beauty it is. And yeah, you're definitely a badass. You can claim that. You can take that.
Excellent, excellent.
Bale Vala, despite it being 1:30, and them having to go to work tomorrow, thank you for still being with us. Has a question about human soul and human tech thing. I thought that the Palantor are humans in a way, so isn't their tech closer to the human tech?
Yeah, definitely. So Palantor don't actually consider themselves human, because okay, so Palantor are basically when humans were facing existence, some of them digitized their minds and uploaded it to a network and basically played Minecraft for several thousand years. But and then they've downloaded themselves back into bodies after these like mechanids have started eating away their digital world. So yeah, so mechanids and Palantor are definitely based off human tech. Jump technology and psionics also come from human technology. They were not created by the Archons. The Archons and Exion, they did biology. They did squishy things, whereas anything digital, which includes psionics and jump tech, is basically, and anything to do with ley lines, that's all coming from humans. And lots of that stuff, people don't actually know how it works. Also, when you play a Palantor, you have the option to start with a secret knowledge. And that's a representative of you having a little bit of a slice of something awesome in your mind. And that means like a little bit of tech or a little bit of lore. And you can spend that in game to get like a special upgrade or a special trait that requires secret knowledge. So that's reflected mechanically as well in the game.
Awesome. Sorry about that. So, you have Frag Kingdom, which came out was about 2 years ago.
Yeah. What's it? A couple of year and a half ago, I think it was released or something like that. Yep.
So when you were writing it, and obviously with kind of the big monoliths of the fantasy genre already kind of established, D&D and other stuff like that within that fantasy genre. How did you want to make Frag Kingdom different, and do you feel like you accomplished that goal, or is there something more you wanted to do? Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
so I actually find the RPG genre, sorry, the fantasy genre within the RPG field is a very interesting one, in that there's so much out there. It's a little bit hard to distinguish yourself, but also it's so popular because people they don't actually want something new. I know some people do, but most people don't. A lot of people who are really looking for something new often move outside the fantasy genre. And so getting that balance right was a bit tricky. And so I thought, okay, so what's some good selling points for this setting to make it tasty, for lack
Mm-hmm.
of a better word. And so part of it, so one, it's actually set in the Fragged Empire universe. Okay, so that means that people, even though you don't need to, if you do know the Empire universe, you're going to get this additional layer of depth. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when you're reading through the book, okay, um, an extra layer of understanding or haha or find stuff interesting, having your favorite races portrayed in a different light or seeing what they would might be like in a new culture with a new history and a new background. Okay, so that's one part of it. The other part of it is I actually have removed um, the classic evil tropes
Mm-hmm.
from this setting. So a lot of other fantasy settings have like the big bad evil overlord, demons, undead, stuff like that. None of that actually exists in Frag Kingdom. Okay, um, the primary antagonist in this setting are actually druids. So, um, and I feel like, and then it gives us sort of this nature versus civilization is the actual big fight,
Mm-hmm.
not versus evil. It's not to say there is not fights of good versus evil. It's just not the center stage one within the universe. Like in the classic, a lot of other fantasy ones, civilization versus nature exists as a tension, but it's a minor side tension.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this universe, it's front and center. And I feel like that gives it a different flavor. Um, you've got the primary evil goddess named, her name is Neff. She's not only the god of death, she's also the god of life and nature. So she's not just this force of evil destruction. There's sort of more to her philosophically, and so I feel like that gives it a nice blend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you've also got the primary uh, because Fragged Empire has an underlining assumption of uh, of science and physics. Okay, even though a lot of it is made up, you know, that same sort of underlying tone is in that. Sorry, I kind of worded that badly. It has the assumption that it comes from our universe. You know, humans right now existed at some point in the history of Fragged Empire and Fragged Kingdom. Um, and so you don't actually get a lot of the classic magic in this world. So the primary mages are actually alchemists
Mm-hmm.
who are actually sort of messing around with ancient tech. So actually, like they might be thinking they're casting a fireball and they're actually throwing a potion of rocket fuel, or they think they're doing a cold spell, but they're actually just spreading around cryogenic fluid. And so that sort of adds an extra bit of quirkiness because often a bit of a problem that you can have with magic is it just feels like a black box. It can do anything. And so this is my way of applying a framework or a structure to it to help players come up with more interesting characters and interesting ways to solve problems, and for GMs to come up with interesting sort of reasons for stuff to happen. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we got some more questions. Uh,
Cool.
so buckle up. These are. So Omega Cake says, any chance you'll add vehicular combat like Seas or Empire to Kingdom?
um, Vehicular combat. Look, you can basically grab the ship rules from Frag Seas and chuck it straight into Frag Kingdom. That would work perfectly fine. Like boats, but rather than cannons, just imagine they're ballistas and archers or something like that. Um, but I think that's probably, if I was going to do something, I could just imagine sailing boat combat. Um, but I didn't think it was quite gripping enough to justify putting in the rulebook,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why I decided to do holdings and armies and stuff like that instead. But you could totally port uh, ship combat from Frag Seas over. That would work just fine.
Excellent. So total D4 says this is more so a question as a GM. I had a player who wanted to play a Palantor, though him and I became confused when looking at the details of the race listed traits, or advantages, whatever you call it. Anyways, the first thing it lists is, "You are a robot!" Exclamation mark. Though in the book we couldn't find anywhere what that meant in terms of its advantages in the system.
Yes, and I think that was a flaw in my sake. I don't think I explained that well enough. I actually feel like I did a slightly better job of it in Frag to Turnham, oddly enough, for being a non-human. But bit of a GM advice. I would basically, so there's a couple of weapons that and traits that do stuff to robots, And then I would just assume that, okay, you're a robot, you don't need to breathe and eat, but you need to plug in for power. So I feel like that's just as much of a
Mhm.
as an advantage or a disadvantage, the whole eating and power thing. Um, yeah, I need to do a better job of it. You as a GM should just go with a normal robot sort of feel and just assume that. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Hopefully that helps. So, firstly, I'm apologizing. That's a flaw on my part for not putting that in the rules properly.
hey, it's a lot to cover in a book.
Yeah.
So Krasai says, speaking of physics and whatnot, how exactly do the ley lines work?
So the idea is that generally that humanity cracked the universe. And so the ley lines are basically hairline fractures that are spreading out across the universe. And it's theorized that they're actually, um, so I don't know whether I'm explaining what's written in the book or whether I'm just stuff that I've got in my head about how it actually works. Okay. So I'm pretty sure the book just doesn't say everything because it leaves a lot of mystery. But my theory is, and this is the one that I've sort of got in my head, is the ley lines are actually cracks into another universe, but that universe is actually smaller than our universe. And because some of that universe is leaking into our universe, some of its scientific, like some of its particles and its scientific laws and ideas about space are actually slipping into our universe, and that's what ley line particles are. And these particles are spreading out from the ley lines, okay, and they enable jump drives to basically gather these particles together, and they open up a portal, um, like a warp bubble,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically skirting the line between the two universes. And because you're slightly going into the other universe, which is so much smaller than ours, you're actually, let's say you travel a meter in that other universe, you may have traveled 100 meters in ours when you come back out. Okay. Um, and so that's my idea that I've got in my head. Another important thing is that ley line particles actually gather around solar systems like rings. Like imagine a ring like Saturn, but spread throughout a whole system. And the particles are spreading further and further, and you can only ever jump basically to where the particles go to. And so what this means is the particles have now also spread further now than what they have when they were first released by the humans back in the day. So
Mm-hmm.
theoretically, you can travel to spaces that humans have never been to, which is a significant thing. Yeah. So hopefully that explains a little bit.
Yeah, they did
Yeah,
say that was a fantastic answer.
that's right. In Frag 2.0, I'll probably write that stuff down. But I don't think I'd quite worked it all out when I was writing the core rule book. I think I was kind of had these vague ideas, but then I've sort of solidified my ideas a bit more.
So I know Chat has been talking about a plushie of every of each of the the main characters for every race, especially Rachel.
This has become a bit of a repeat topic on my Discord channel. Um, and I'm probably not helping the topic by saying if I find a good company that makes them, I will probably get one made because plushies are great.
They are. We just need an awesome fan to just start making them for us.
Well, if someone wants to open an Etsy store, I will more than happy to send some traffic their way.
I would also like this. All right, so we are coming up at the end of the interview. I know Wade has had woke up early for everyone. Belvala says they have some connections in the industry and will message you. So hopefully we will get those plushies sometime soon. Who knows?
Sounds good.
Uh, but for those watching, please, 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 we only got a couple minutes left. If you have any questions, feel free. And thank you again, Wade, for waking up early to kind of hang out with us.
No problem.
Um, so the downtime system has gone through some changes since like the first core rule book. What has been kind of your thought process as every kind of new book came out concerning the downtime system? What are kind of like your goals, and how did you think it was important to include this system within the book at all?
Yeah, so I think so. Basically, the downtime system is basically people get these spare time points
Hmm.
each session, and you can store them up. And when you've got some downtime, you can spend them, and you can buy misc stuff. You can upgrade things. You can do trade goods or research and stuff like that. I like that system because it simultaneously removes the pressure from players to feel like, okay, I'm in town, I must do stuff now.
Hmm.
Try and maximize every bit of downtime because they know their spare time points are storing up. Okay, so they can wait until a time where it's narratively appropriate. They've just beaten the big bad guy. They've got a chill session. The GM wants to run a little bit more of a chilled game in town. They can then go and spend it. They don't feel like they must do stuff at every moment. Okay. The other part why I like the system, is um, it encourages all players to actually become increasingly connected to the world. So
Hmm.
let's say you're a fighter, you're getting a spare time pointing session, same as the scientist. Okay, the scientist knows what they're doing with their spare time point. In fact, they don't have enough. They want to research, they want to modify their gun, they want to do this, they want to do that. Okay, but the fighter is like, well, I've got these spare time points. I should do something with them. Otherwise, I'm just wasting them. And so it encourages them to actually have some non combat skills, and not only non combat skills, but some non combat interests
Hmm.
of ways to spend these points. Okay. And this could be, I'm studying martial arts, or maybe I'm modifying my gun. Like, they could be still militaristically focused, but it encourages all types of players. So I really like my system. I want skill characters to contribute in combat in a meaningful way, and I want combat focused characters to contribute in narrative skill ways as well. And so I feel like the downtime system is a very simple system that bridges those gaps. Um, and I think there's a lot of potential to just expand on that system in my book. Like, I don't think I actually fully explain how awesome this is in
Hmm.
my core rule book. And I think the spare times point system and the downtime has been immensely popular with people. Um, and it also, another thing that I think is really, really fun is it encourages creativity. So in the book, let's say, for example, it says you want to buy a pistol, okay, cheap
Yeah.
pistol, okay, you need to make a spare time roll of 12. That's all the book says. You as a player need to justify your skill choice as to how you're getting that pistol. So the rich character can make a wealth skill roll to buy it. The mechanics character may just make a mechanics roll to sort of make it out of salvage scrap that they got. And maybe the thug character makes a leadership roll to intimidate some poor person in the street and take them. Okay? And they make their skill roll and they get it. And even though mechanically it is super simple, that the type of narrative power of that can add to a game is immense. So like, yeah. Anyway, I really love that system, and it's been very popular. And the more people get it, I think they really, yeah, see its value.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite aspects of the game in general is because I love it when a game kind of encourages you to look beyond the I guess the normal action adventure that you're usually going through in a game, and helps you to kind of look beyond those present moments into what am I gonna do when I got some downtime on this planet, and what small projects do I want to kind of dip my toes in.
Yeah, and I think it also a lot of games fall into the trap of um, tying certain sorts of uh, experiences to certain types of characters. Now, it's a bit of an abstract idea, so
Hmm.
hopefully I'll explain it well. So, acquiring stuff, that experience of acquiring physical objects within a game, is usually tied to wealth. So
Hmm.
that means you've got to be rich. And the problem that you have is that some games are like, well, I want everybody to enjoy that aspect of acquiring and stuff. So therefore, everyone must have money, and you end up with a D&D situation where everyone's actually rich.
Yeah.
Actually, have the rich and the poor character journeying together. You know, because that doesn't work within that system. Because otherwise, the poor character can't actually join in the experience of acquiring things, and the
Hmm.
rich character acquires too much, and they become overshadowing. Same things in terms of study and research, not just the scientist character, maybe the martial arts character, maybe wants to do research as well. Anyway, that's just some philosophical ideas that I've got in my head about the way
Always
I
good
make
to hear.
play.
All right, so the final round of questions. So first, what are your suggestions for someone as a new player coming into your game and system?
New player. If you're really new, I'd probably try and grab one of the pre-gen characters. I believe I've got them up on my website.
Hmm.
Just grab a pre-gen, slap it down, have a one shot with a GM. That's the ideal situation. But if you're joining in with some people who have already played Frag before, uh, when you're making a character, it's very easy to get overwhelmed by choices. Okay, because Fragged allows a lot of customization and choices. So I would do two things. One is select your primary skill. Like, what is a skill that defines the personality of your character? So if you're a mechanic, okay, get trained in mechanics and just look at mechanic traits and select one of those for your first, because you get one trait per level. Don't look at the traits in any other area. Just look in the area of your key personality defining skill. Okay, or maybe you're a strong character. Just look under strong strength traits. The second thing is have an idea in your head of what gun you want or weapon, and then just make that. Don't start looking at what you can do, because you can basically do anything. Okay, you want a rifle? Just select the rifle. Just go with it. Don't start comparing rifles to SMGs to shotguns and then pick one based on the mechanics. Just pick one and go with it. You can always change it out later. And of course, I do not explain these things very well in my core rule book, so there's always room for improvement. So you're not wrong for being a little bit lost.
Yeah, and I know. So I've gotten a couple of new players, and what I've done is I've because your website has the pre-generated character sheets, and I just printed them all out because I know my players when I'm like, hey guys, just pick a concept, and then here are the ways we could streamline character creation. My players are always like looking through the book and going outside their area every time, every time. So
Something that happens quite often is I've seen several people get really excited by the weapon creation rules, and then they just make this stupid thing that just doesn't work, and it's super weird. And you're like, they've just slapped every option on it.
yeah, it's this weird like mechanism. Like, what does this do? I don't know. But yeah, for definitely new players, please check out the Fragged Empire website. The pregens are really good, and of course, there's the starter adventure for free. Right? I forget what it's called.
Starship Carthage.
There we go. And then of course there are some other ones that if you want to spend some money for the PDFs on are amazing. Um, so the next one we have is so creating more solar system maps. Is it a priority at all for the next Fragged Empire setting?
Phew, that's a tricky question. Look, I think so. I think I really liked having Fragged just focused on the Haven system. I think I was okay with that. But I think in the future, and I've already done this a little bit by fleshing out some extra systems a little bit in the protagonist and the antagonist archive. Um, I think I'd like to do a few. I feel like it can make the universe just a little bit bigger,
Mm-hmm.
but not too big. I don't want to make it too big. It's always been an intimate setting.
Mm-hmm.
So three or four, I think would be nice.
All right. And that was from Karsa. So Belvala asked, "Will you flesh out the new invasion big boss? I assume more in the next Fragged Empire setting."
It's the Oni would be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I think that's something I've consciously decided against. I've always been, I don't want to determine what the big bad evil guy is, mostly because the setting has very strongly had no one knows what's out there and no one knows what the future holds. That's always been a cornerstone of the fragged setting. So I think what I would likely to do if I was to do something was to put forward several possible options and then just leave it up to the GM and clearly say these are just creative ideas to get your creative juices flowing. So one might be the Oni, okay,
Mm-hmm.
them entering the area and enslaving everybody. Another one could be the Mechanids rising back up, okay, reactivating and wanting to destroy your sentient life. A third one, just to put it really out there, the Exion returning, because it's still out there, perfectly fine. Um, so, and I would just put these out as ideas. Basically, just this is what could happen, and I feel like if I just put one out, people would start to mistakenly assume that that's actually canon, and that's coming. That is the threat.
Mm-hmm. And so Belvala also says, "And will you flesh out the plans of the Devi?"
Oh, the Devoy itch. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the Nephilim. Okay, so I really want to do an antagonist archive 2. Okay, and when I do an antagonist archive 2, I want to actually spell out the Devway itch. I want to actually describe it, have a giant, sexy bit of artwork, and really get into the machinations of this creature. Because the Devway it is easily the most powerful, not necessarily the most influential, possibly, yeah, but definitely the most powerful creature in the
Mm-hmm.
setting in terms of the Haven system. Like nothing compares to its strength. Okay, and it has complete dictatorial control over the Nephilim, the Eden Brood. And I would also like to spell out the board of management for the corporation. I would like
Ooh.
to have the ten people, and I totally want to get some backers. Have a backer pledge your face.
Oh, that would be awesome.
For like six of them or something like that. Not all of them, but just six, because I've got a few in mind already. Um, and I would like to actually spell them out. This person is part of this corporation, and this is their goals. And this person only ever turns up to meetings as a hologram. Nobody's ever met them physically. Um, this person on the board of the management is actually a Nephilim. Like a non Vagati is actually on there, and stuff like that. Like I would love to spell that out. Yeah, so I think an antagonist archive 2 is most likely to get that, although I may not be able to control myself and I might just put it in something earlier.
Do it. People are going crazy. They want to see it. I want to see it.
Oh, I'm very excited by those ideas. I think people would absolutely love them.
Oh yeah,
I've,
that.
I've very purposefully not written much about the Deathway itch, mostly because I've got all these plans that I want to write. I want to give it a full proper write up all at once. Yeah.
So Kursai says, the choose your adventure. Oh wait, hold on. Going back to the other one. Sorry, Kursai. Okay, the one before that. Adding on to Belvala's last one, with the Oni invasion, would you consider an adventure book for it, like Curse of Strahd, but making it like a progressing wartime scenario?
Yeah, so I'm still getting my head around adventures and campaigns. I find myself in a tricky spot. Um, the unfortunate tricky spot that I find myself in is that not everybody actually likes pre-written adventures. Whereas, for example, if I was to release a normal Fragged Empire expansion book, like
Hmm.
for example this one on Mishpasha that I'm working on, pretty much everyone will get it because there's something there for everyone.
Yeah.
There's a bit of rules, there's some lore, it fleshes things out, and it's just stories if you just want to read them. Whereas um, I I'm not confident that I'd get enough sales from doing a full campaign book, which quite frankly just really sucks. Like it does suck when what you want to do is restricted um, due to financial reasons. But um, I would like to do it. So yeah, sorry, it's frustrating.
No, no, it's Belvala also, and I think you kind of answered this question before, but I just kind of want to be thorough.
All
Can
right.
you imagine just books where you advance the overall storyline? Is this something that you might want to do one day, or do you always want to kind of leave it kind of always up to the player in terms of what's in their world?
So I'm always going to leave it up to the players. But that being said, I'm not opposed to the idea of doing adventures and campaigns or novels or other stuff and just say it's not canon. Like just saying this is
Yeah.
one potential future. And I think that's most likely what I'm going to do. And I feel like that will probably liberate me a bit. Like I'll probably have my my hardcover books will be considered canon, and then all of my digital and soft cover like adventures or campaigns are just considered not canon,
Hmm.
and then I could just do whatever. You know, I could come up with wacky, wild things that break the setting and do different stuff that, or not break it, but really impact it. I don't have to have my hands tied behind my back narratively. So yeah, I'd be up for that.
That's fair. I mean, my personal question is, I know, looking at the Discord, your Facebook, and just looking at this chat, you have a lot of people who are really engaged in the story, in the whole world of Fragged Empire. Um, and this is a long shot. But have you ever kind of considered making a kind of equivalent of the D&D Adventures League, where you have these different people in different places going through storylines, and kind of being able to tell stories concerning that?
Short answer, yes. So there's a couple of things. There's basically three things in my head. Uh, Um, of course, it'd be very exciting. I'd love to do that. I actually think the fragged rule system
Hmm.
is an excellent fit for that sort of game. Like it's a beautiful fit. The way that resources work and spare time points. Um, I think yeah, that's a good encouragement. That one. The other two things though that hurdles I need to get over is one is I never grew up doing those things. I
Hmm.
never grew up in conventions because I grew up in a country town. Like I didn't go to a convention until I'd released Fragged, you know, um, and we didn't have a local game store or anything like that. And so um, it's very difficult to create something for a community that you're not immersed in.
Yeah.
And personally, just how do you put it? Soaked in, swimming amongst, getting an idea for how it works, and that, and so I've chatted to people who know it, and quite frankly, I'm probably just going to need someone. Like I'm probably just going to have to be when someone in the community gets super passionate and wants to do this, I'll be like, okay, I will help you, but I have no idea. And then just try to empower the community to create it. The third thing is um, pretty much connected to previously is that writing up adventures and stuff like that, it's hard to make that financially viable.
Hmm.
But in this particular context, though, you can get some pretty light adventures made, and they can often be made by the community. And I believe a lot of those are like Pathfinder and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of lowering the production quality and emphasizing sort of quantity a bit more, quantity and quality of writing over aesthetics. That's that could actually help a lot in that area. So yeah,
That would
hopefully
be
that.
exciting to see. All right, community, step up. Let's do this. Also, Omega Cake said if you do that, have your face as one of the corp heads, they would definitely back so high for that. So,
Yeah, I imagine there would be. There's technically from my first Kickstarter, somebody's actually already claimed position as one of the corporate 10 CEOs. So they're locked in, So one's already figured out.
it's already in. All right, well, throw your money at it. We'll get there. All right. Let's see if there's any more I'm missing.
This is when you get bombarded by 10 more
I
questions.
know. I'm like I was up at the top, and then like I know some things have happened. So there's Chris I talks about it would be cool to see a canonical adventure, which includes Rachel and her gang. Um, so Omega Cake says this is their last question. One more question. Have you considered asking Mr. Walsh of the famous list to check out your system?
Mr. Walsh.
Yeah,
Give us a link. I don't know who that is.
yeah, that
Hey,
I'm curious too, Omega Cake.
and if you know them, send them a link. Send them my way. Like to say, hey, checked out this, and I'm happy to chat to them.
That
Yeah.
would be awesome.
I'm not super plugged into the whole RPG podcast blogger sphere. I just kind of chat to whoever.
And yeah, Omega, that is my baby, who very much sounds like a bird on the other side of the door, desperately trying to crash in and probably knock over my computer. But that's how babies are. Guys, it has been a pleasure. Wade, did you have any closing announcements, thing to say?
uh, I'll just be a shill. Back my Kickstarter. Yeah, hopefully we get funded this week. I'd really like to. We had a really good first start. Things are kind of chilling out now, and then I know we'll have a big finish. I know we're going to get funded. We're already well on our way, but the sooner we get funded, the sooner I can announce stretch goals, and yeah, help a lot.
Thanks, Garsai. And for you, Wade, I have the link for it was a slight missed type Welch. But yeah, I put the link up there. Guys, thank you so much for coming to the interview. Thank you, Wade, for allowing us to bombard you with questions. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop on over to his Discord. I'll make sure to post a link before we kind of head out for good. Definitely check out the Kickstarter if you haven't already. Make sure you tell your friends. The more people who know, the better. If you are at Gen Con, feel free to say hi to me. I will be at Studio 2's booth. Say hi. Let's talk about Fragged Empire because I'm always excited to talk to other people about this awesome game. So, yeah, once again, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Wade.
Cool. Thank you so much, Rich.
Bye, everyone.